Hey folks, it's Sam, and as you can see, I have this screenshot up here that says Mars retrograde cycle ahead from October 30th, 2022 until January 12th, 2023. This is coming now as Mars has gone into Gemini. I'm going to talk about these things in this video. From October 30th until January 12th, 2023, Mars is going to be retrograde, moving from Gemini to Taurus. I have a free web class where I'm going to talk about that for you and all 12 zodiac signs. You can just go to marsretrogradecycle.com and get that. It's free, and you'll really benefit from this. You just go and register for an upcoming date and time, and you can see how this is going to affect you for the next several months. So Mars is now in Gemini, which can show a potentially aggressive communication style. Very easy to put those things together. Mars is aggression, logic, often black and white thinking, and Gemini is very much about ideas and verbosity and conveying those ideas. We need to be careful not to get too ahead of ourselves, especially when we are looking at things and sort of bifurcating ideas that require nuance into black and white, sort of aggressive talking points and excuses for getting all fired up and worked up with each other. Mars in Gemini definitely has this more confrontational style rather than conversational style. Mars ruled people, and people who have a very prominent Mars, like in the second house or with Mercury or in Mercury signs or any way that's affecting communication, always have to be careful about being confrontational, even when they don't realize they're being confrontational. So this is definitely something that we're going to be looking at as Mars is in Gemini for about the next month. And he's going to go up to the point of retrograde on the 30th, and then he goes backwards, and then he'll be retrograde until January of 2023. Now, of course, there's also some benefit to having Mars in Gemini. Those of you who have it, you obviously have to be careful of that sort of, as I said, sort of aggressive communication style and mistaking logic and black and white thinking for conversation and for an exchange of ideas. But one of the good things about it is it's a very energized intellectual state where you're very fired up about your ideas, very much looking for things to make sense, right? Very much interested in things that make you stronger. Again, it could very much show an interest and even skill with things like martial arts and yoga and athletics and other kinds of things where Mars gets invigorated. But there's every possibility that Mars in Gemini also gets a sort of distracted quality. Again, because Gemini is more intellectual and Mars is more physical, there can be a sort of frustration. One thing I've also noticed, though, is when Mars is in Gemini, in the highest sense, the person has a very keen understanding of things like Advaita Vedanta and sort of non-dualistic ways of looking at things. Again, because Mars is black and white. Is it this or that? Which one is it? And non-dualistic Advaita Vedanta is very much a sort of bifurcation of reality, where there's oneness, where everything is, not form, and then there's form. And so, but again, this can often be difficult to maintain because once we've incarnated into existence, we're in duality. So you can see the very thing I'm talking about, where people who have a keen interest in Advaita Vedanta also argue about it. And it's impossible to argue Advaita Vedanta because you're actually already in a dualistic frame, arguing about a non-dualistic source or outcome or potential. So it's very tricky, but one thing is that a person can really comprehend this non-dualistic approach to life, and that you're not the ego, and to try to destroy the ego intellectually, which again is also very much powerful Mars Gemini sort of paradigm. Destroy Mars ideas that are false, Gemini. And in fact, retrograde is an internalizing of factors. So again, this is one thing that's very powerful in this Mars retrograde cycle in Gemini, is an internalizing first of this external Mars to want to destroy something, let's say destroy ideas externally in the form of arguments. If it reflects upon itself, then you're trying to destroy your own intellectual weakness. Again, destroy Mars, your own intellectual weakness, Gemini, and it's your own because you're reflecting on it. So rather than externalizing that and saying, I'm going to destroy your intellectual weakness, which is the problem with Mars and Gemini, you will be saying, I'm going to destroy my intellectual weakness because it's reflecting on itself. Now, this is happening in Mrigashira Nakshatra, which is the sign of the deer, or the Nakshatra of the deer that is curiously exploring its environment. As you can see on the screen, I also have this very large graphic that says Mars retrograde for you and all 12 signs. This is to a free web class that you can also get that I have just put together, which breaks down this entire retrograde cycle for you and all 12 signs. That includes how Mars just in general brings strength for you and your sign, aside from retrograde or anything else. And of course, how this retrograde cycle will affect you and others based on your sign and their sign. And also explain very deeply exactly how retrograde is influencing and affecting things. Also, this Rohini to Mrigashira spiritual story is very important because, as I said, this Mars is now retrograde in Mrigashira Nakshatra, but it went in, or it came from Rohini Nakshatra, which is the one before it, and Mars is hanging out in these two nakshatras for like 6 months. So this is a very important time for you to understand. Again, when you include the Mars retrograde shadow, which is the period that Mars is going to cover 3 times during the retrograde cycle, it's actually started from the middle of September until early February, which means that Mars will cover the same territory 3 times during that entire epoch. So any planets that you have from 14 degrees of Taurus to like 1 degree of Gemini, if you have any natal planets there, it's also going to get covered 3 times by this retrograde cycle. I happen to have my Venus there, so there you go. Anyway, this is just an overview of this Mars retrograde cycle. To get an hour-long class, masterclass on this, go ahead and join the webinar, that online web class that's a longer examination. It's very easy, just register and join. There are many times available. Whether you know it or not, this Mars retrograde cycle is going to have a big impact over your life, and you want to make sure to not be aggressive and arguing and these kinds of things. And I go into great detail on the web class about those things. So thanks a lot. Share this with others, like and subscribe to the channel as well. So thanks a lot. Please find me on YouTube at Sam Jeppy, Vedic astrology teacher. On there since 2007, thousands of hours of classes. Also on Facebook at Astrology Teacher, tons of articles updated regularly, and I'm on Instagram at Vedic Astrology 108, ongoing updates and interaction.